There are men in Abi Morgan's drama, BBC One, 9 p.m., about high-powered, fully rounded cocktail-drinking female lawyers, but, dramatically, they are unusual. Partly this is a matter of character development. The men are sketchy, half-formed. Best of them is Stephen Mangan, playing Nathan, the husband of Hannah, Nicola Walker, who is at the center of everything. Mangan is fine, he always is, but his role here is to be the underappreciated spouse. This means his character is a cartoon. Usually Mangan plays a witty twit. This time, he's more sympathetic. He's a twitty wit, and an expert in fertility law. Hannah and her husband have 3 children, one of whom is starting to experiment with the fertility thing. The Split trailer, BBC One, or take Oscar, the actual gold blend man, Anthony Head. He has a bit more going for him. He is the father of Hannah. He popped out for a paper 30 years ago, and has only just returned, seeking his share in Hannah's mother's law firm, and signaling his raffishness with his habit of wearing scarves indoors. And then there is Christy Barry-Atsmith, who is Danish but sounds American, and is impeccably groomed. If this was The Good Wife, Christy would be Will Gardner, but this isn't The Good Wife. He has to settle for being the man whose impertinent iPhone messages disturb Hannah at 1:30 a.m. while she's busy neglecting her husband on account of having to hold down a high-powered job and be a supermom in an ideal home with French windows and children's shoes at the foot of the stairs. Christy loves Hannah, okay? Even though his ex is a high-powered supermodel glamazon. She's pregnant, which Christy wasn't keen on. Because, as well as being an unattainable pre-marriage fantasy who has suddenly become attainable, he is obviously a bastard. Ruth Deborah Findlay, Nina, Annabelle Sholey, Hannah, Nicola Walker, Rose, Fiona Button, Oscar, Anthony Head, Hannah, Nicola Walker, Rose, Fiona Button, Hannah, Nicola Walker, Nina, Annabelle Sholey, Oscar, Anthony Head, Davy, Stephen Tompkinson, Goldie, Mirosal Davy, Stephen Tompkinson, Hannah, Nicola Walker, Nathan, Stephen Mangan, and Hannah. Yes, Hannah. Hannah and her sisters are what this whole thing is about. The story could go in any direction except contentment. At the moment, it is power walking down the corridor, which runs between the quiet defeats of middle age and the lingering fantasies of youth. Hannah has trainers behind the desk in her corner office, but she spends more time glowering into bathroom mirrors than working out because, and here is the thing, Hannah is an expert in divorce law with an aversion to conflict, who seems to be on the verge of plunging herself into an entirely avoidable cock-up with Christy, the well-groomed corpus, who sports a trim red beard and a blue suit, like a corporate pirate. Hannah is having a crisis, and no mistake. Her hair has gone blonde. Possibly, it doesn't quite suit her. She has power suits with big shoulders. Possibly they don't suit her either, it's hard to tell. She has powder blue high-waisted Oxford bags like a stumper at the Wigan Casino, which is not what you'd expect in a lawyer, but there are a lot of conspicuous clothes on show, and she has lots of shoes. They were red stilettos in episode 1, which is to divorce lawyers what bloody morning skies are to shepherds. So here is Hannah, in bed, waiting for the tritone alert on her phone, talking about her father's infidelity. Affairs don't happen in secret, says Nathan, her neglected husband. There are usually signs which we chose to ignore. Adam K. Pick of the day. Paterno, Sky Atlantic, 9 p.m. Director Barry Levinson, Rain Man, Good Morning, Vietnam, worked with Al Pacino on 2 previous television excursions, the Phil Spector biopic and You Don't Know Jack, about controversial suicide doctor Jack Kevorkian. The veteran actor's portrayal of Penn State American football coach Joe Paterno is similarly nuanced. Paterno, nicknamed Joe Eppa, was one of the most successful coaches in history, but was fired in 2011 when he was linked to the case of Jerry Sandusky, an assistant coach at Penn State, indicted on 52 counts of child molestation. Scandal hit Al Pacino as Joe Paterno, HBO. The story is uncovered by young reporter Sarah Ganim, daughter of Lisa Marie Presley, Riley Keough, who exposed the scandal a year after leaving college. Events are limited to the 2-week period in which Paterno became the winningest coach in football history and then fell from grace. Much of it occurs in flashback, as Paterno reflects on events from inside an MRI machine. He died of lung cancer in 2012. It's not a judgmental film, though the implication is that Paterno was too involved in football to notice what was going on. The drama, says Pacino, is in the central question: what did he know, and what didn't he know? Screen time. Cunk on Britain, BBC 2, 10 p.m. Asking, as a noted television critic recently did, what is the point of Philomena Cunk, is to miss the point. Cunk, Diane Morgan's precisely vague television presenter, is an ambassador of pointlessness, and a sustained act of television criticism by creator Charlie Brooker. This is the best episode of the series, as the show runs out of history and satirizes the way we remember the recent past. Or, as Cunk puts it, olden times end, and now times begin. She starts with the Beatles, George, Ringo and their guitarists, who changed everything. In the early days, she says, they couldn't afford individual haircuts. Fast forward to Cool Britannia, and Cunk asking of Mark Lawson, why did more people vote for Tony Blair than Oasis? BBC 2, Cunk on Britain continues. BBC, House of Tomorrow, Adam Lawrence, fighting terror with torture. Panorama, London Live, 9:30 p.m. Controlled drowning, is a more precise definition of waterboarding, which sounds more like an activity on offer at an all-inclusive resort. When the news of how intelligence agencies were utilizing torture to interrogate suspects, there was an outcry, and this speaks to those subjected to it in CIA black sites. The Stewarts, London Live, 7 p.m. In an early display of how the Brits love a bargain, Charles I organized a Start One Get One Free campaign of conflicts across these shores, wasting no time to get stuck in with a scrap in the first year of his reign. 3 years before the headline-grabbing Civil War, the one where Charles Part II hit up a tree, disguised as a tall squirrel, there was the Bishops' War, which began when Charles Part I demanded churches across the country accept the Book of Common Prayer and follow Anglican practice. This would be the prologue to the ruinous series of civil wars, which would claim hundreds of thousands of lives through battle and disease. A staggering 41% of Ireland's population would perish. Catch up. Jeff Beck, still on the run. BBC iPlayer, an extraordinary documentary about the influential British guitarist, who started off playing homemade instruments in Wallington, Surrey, and went on to redefine the art of rock guitar. He left the Yardbirds at the height of their fame, nurtured Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood, and helped to invent heavy metal. Don't hold that against him. Beck also played on Stevie Wonder's Talking Book, Cereal Box, The Leftovers, Sky box sets, Now TV in the age of TV overload. The ambition of this series about our old friend the global cataclysm may have been overlooked. As the actual cataclysm begins to seem ever more plausible, now is a good time to try to unpick the mystery of Damon Lindelof's fruitful adaptation of Tom Perrotta's novel. Lindelof's Lost ended up being a waste of time. The Leftovers is a trip worth taking.